Hello, my name is Dan Achimowicz. I am a Masters of Architecture student at Lawrence Tech University in Southfield, Michigan, and this is my presentation for research methods. It is our draft presentation on the three posters that we've worked on all semester. First one covers the discourses portion of the course. The second poster is also shown to you here, as well as the third one, and I will be discussing all three of them in this presentation. Okay, so if we go back to the first poster 1 and poster, it's poster 1A and poster 1B is what they really should be. These two posters combined together into one presentation. The way we began our research process here is we had to choose a practitioner from a list, an architectural practitioner, and the company that I chose was Eldorado, which is an architectural firm out of Kansas City. And the most interesting thing about that I discovered from this presentation was the methodology that this company, which was kind of built on a design-build concept right from the start, with the original members joining in a welding class of all places. What they've created so far, or at this stage, is something called Design and Make Studio, where Kansas State Architectural University students are brought into a course where they not only do they actually design an actual product or a project, they actually get to build it as well. So basically it's a three-step process where there's the thinking, the designing, and the actual building. And on these boards, on this board poster on the left side, you see some examples of students actually welding, doing some wood framing, doing some concrete work, all of it under the guidance of tradesmen as well as architects and engineers. So from there I moved on to the second panel, which is the one on the right, and the idea there was to actually try and apply what we've learned to a proposed concept or a theory that we could use in our own research project. And being a part-time professor at Sheridan College here in Mississauga, Ontario, professor of architectural technology, I've found it extremely interesting. I found the concept of not only teaching the students how to design in class, but the concept of actually having the students work on the actual built form of the project. I found that extremely interesting. And as Eldorado states in their theory or approach to this, is basically that we learn by doing. So if we do things, we actually learn from them quite a bit more than simply sitting at a desk and working out problems. So my poster on the right hand side is similar to the one on the left, where it again focuses on research and exploration, focuses on modeling, small scale, focuses on visualization, and all of that would incorporate a lot of the new three-dimensional software that is available. And then finally the last portion being the actual model it. In addition to that, I do make a point at the bottom right hand corner about architectural students, what's the best way to teach them, and also not only teaching them how to build, because we don't really expect architects to become tradespeople, but we expect them to question the question, as the quote from Krugman states. The basic idea here is to really think through as to how to develop good designers. What is the best way to do something like this? My point is that there's two ways to learn: observational learning by watching others, but the other one is the practical training or making, is potentially, in my view, probably the best way for young architects to learn learn their craft and to learn how to eventually put things together. I'm going to slide the projector over to the second poster. So this is research poster number 2, and again it's part A and part B. And again, we focus on the Preston Outdoor Education Center with El Dorado. The students were asked to compose the designs. They were also asked to meet with clients and work on that as well. There were, again, 3 steps to it. There was the planning, the actual doing, and finally the actual monitoring by the students. So you can see that big circle in the center of the 2 boards, which discusses the 4-step process of learning, being planning, the actual doing, the analysis, the actual monitoring, and then finally that turns into the 4th step, which is learning from the entire circle there. On the right hand side, research poster number 2 talks, again, this is all about, poster number 2 is all about methodology. So we focused on how to actually make this a realistic concept in our case study. And again, I continued on with the theme of producing an actual, or incorporating an actual course at Sheridan College, and you see an image there on the right hand side. Something similar to a tech shop. Sheridan College in Mississauga is located in a very urban downtown Mississauga area where there's a lot of condominiums, high-rise condominiums with people who would not have the ability to have access to tools and shop things, but would potentially like to do all kinds of things. So an introduction of a tech shop at Sheridan College makes a lot of sense. That would be open to an entire community, but as well to the architectural technology students, so they could actually use these large shops to actually produce some of the products that we would expose them to. And on the bottom right hand side, I talk about the potential of shelters, movable shelters that could be installed downtown Toronto and throughout the greater Toronto area, where there are some pretty serious homeless problems. And one of them, the worst case scenario, is people who sleep outside on the street in the middle of winter, and obviously that's with some terrible consequences. So the basic idea here is to introduce the students to the design, to the build process, but also have projects that have some type of a social responsibility attached to it, whether it's homelessness, whether it's Habitat for Humanity, something that's within a reasonable scale for the students to build. So we obviously cannot build something that is too large or multi-level, but potentially the students could contribute in a lot of ways to build projects that are manageable and most likely to be done in groups. Okay, the last part, the last set of boards talks about the research context. Okay, so we went, the second one was research process, then we went to research context here, and this is where we studied in more detail the design proposed by the students at El Dorado on the left hand side. This is again the same project. The client was YMCA Camp Wood, and the project was a series of nodes, as you can tell in this drawing here. So a series of nodes throughout this large open prairie-like site that was near a protected area. And all of that information is basically put up here as reference, so anyone looking at this board would understand that they were programmatic requirements. So the 3 contextual requirements I looked at was programmatic requirements. So I talked about the budget, the duration. I also showed a site plan here and where it's physically located in the US. The context number 2 would be site and environment, and in this case I'm talking about special nodes, if you will, where different projects were built by the students. The last context would be the students themselves. So students not only as the designers, but actual builders. And as you can see in the 2 photos that were chosen here, the students were involved in the design process, in large groups, talking to engineers, talking to owners, as well as they were included on the site itself, producing and building the final design. On the right hand side, my poster 3B talks about contextual elements again, and again I focused on programmatic developments, site as well, but in this case social issues attached to it. And then context number 3 would be, again, students as designers, builders, and what I'm hoping for is future leaders, if we incorporate the social responsibility into that. So basically, again, the same idea of producing a course at Sheridan College. The programmatic requirements would be gone over at the beginning of the course with the students. We would talk about affordability, environmental issues, social consciousness, urban housing, lack of affordable housing within the GTA, and that's one of the things we could talk about, and again it would all depend on the final product that we would ask the students to build. Context number 2 would have to do with site and also social issues. So where is it actually literally located? It could be underpasses. It could be out in the suburbs, depending on what it is, and then depending on also the social issue we're trying to deal with, whether it's homelessness, lack of affordability, and then the third part, again, the context would be architectural students, and the hope would be to teach them about architecture, to teach them about how things are put together, and to also teach them about the importance of them being future leaders. That concludes my presentation of the 3 panels. This is my draft mode presentation of the 3 boards. Any questions or comments, please feel free to jot a line down underneath this video. Thank you.